ever had a night terror, you know how scary it can be. But what if it keeps happening, and what is the difference between that and a nightmare?
So here to explain is Dr. Luis Ortiz from Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. Welcome back to the show. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me again.
Of course. I know. I like that we had you today.
Yes.
We've been talking about sleep for our little ones, having lost an hour.
Yes.
Can you talk about Sleep Awareness Week?
Yeah, so it is Sleep Awareness Week. It's an event kind of sponsored by the National Sleep Foundation and American Academy of Sleep Medicine. It's purposely tied around daylight savings time. Daylight saving time is a really big change in our sleep schedules. We're going from all of a sudden having our body's expecting the sun to rise at a certain time, and then all of a sudden we make a big jump. It's not a small transition, and that can affect how well we're able to go to sleep and how much hours we're going to get to sleep. And then as the seasons progress, as we go into summer, all of a sudden you're going to be asked to go to sleep at a time when, like, an hour after the sun just set. Your body is going to have a lot more trouble going to sleep, and then just when you finally get the hang of it, you got to go back.
I know, yeah.
And that's what's a lot of drive towards getting this abolished is being made, because this affects our health, it affects our productivity, and it could affect how our kids sleep as well.
And that lack of sleep, especially in kids, that can then turn into what we were talking about earlier, night terrors and nightmares. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So there's night terrors and nightmares. They're both what we call parasomnias. They're like behaviors that occur around sleep. There's a big difference between the two. So nightmare is actually like a dream. There's a vision, there's maybe a story, and it causes the child distress. They wake up, they cry, they scream, you go in, you can console them, you can make them feel better, and then once they calm down, they can go back to sleep. Night terror is, they may act, they may yell, they may scream, they may act like they're afraid, but there's no actual vision or story. This is related to specific parts of the brain waking up, and these parts of the brain usually are what's called the limbic system, the parts of fear that are in charge of fear and terror. And everything else is asleep, but that part is awake. So it only knows how to do one thing, and it's yell and scream.
Wow.
You go into the room, you try to console your child, they're not responding. They keep on crying and screaming. It may happen for like 10, maybe up towards 15 minutes, but then they go back to sleep, and then the next thing in the morning, they don't remember a single thing.
They don't remember,
So another big difference between nightmares and night terrors is that nightmares can happen at any time of the night. It usually goes around our REM sleep, that's the stage of sleep where we have dreams. Night terrors, on the other hand, they typically occur out of deep sleep. And in children and most people, deep sleep occurs in the first half of the night.
Okay.
And so that's one of the big differences that we can pick them apart.
Okay. So once you recognize the difference between the two, then what's next?
So
I'd imagine that night terrors are more alarming, and that's something you really want to seek help for.
Yeah, but sometimes you first start at the simple things, like is your child getting enough sleep? If you don't get enough sleep, a good chunks of your brain are more likely to be able to go into a deep sleep while leaving other parts of the brain behind, and that can trigger these parasomnias or night terrors. Is your child stressed? And that could be both psychological, but also physical, like being ill, sick, or even something as mild as sleeping in a new bedroom or sleeping in a hotel room. These can be triggers.
Changing the environment.
What's the environment is like? Is there an older sibling that's a little bit noisy, slamming doors? That slight noise can cause a partial arousal leading to these behaviors. With nightmares, it kind of depends. So I think a lot of times it's kind of trying to control the content our child sees and does, like some no stressful things right before bedtime, making sure that they're not seeing scary videos on YouTube. And that's a popular trend to hear like scary stories or to watch scary videos. And a lot of times kids may be watching that before bed, and that can translate into nightmares.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes, though, the parents try to control everything, try to make sure it's a nice environment routine. The child still has nightmares recurring, and it almost seems like there's nothing going on. You start wanting to think about anxiety, and that can also be an early point of anxiety. But treating anxiety, nightmares can be as simple as talking with the child about what they dreamed, kind of like bringing it back up, but in a very safe environment so that they get desensitized to that nightmare.
Yeah.
More advanced things, ask them to change the ending of the story in the nightmare so that they can have a sense of control. And then eventually these nightmares will kind of not be as scary to them and they can sleep better.
Oh, that's
Beautiful.
a good tip.
Well, thank you for these fantastic tips and for educating us today. We appreciate it, Doctor.